Welcome, everybody. My name is Jeff Fowler. I'm the president of the Apartment Owners Association, and it is great to have you with us today. We have an awesome speaker. You're going to learn how you can escape from California with your properties, and so using a DST. It will be great, and I want to just tell you a little bit about us. We're AOA, Apartment Owners Association. If you have rental property, our goal for you is to help you make and or keep more money than ever before. Plus, we want to make the whole process of providing housing easier and more enjoyable. So that's what we try to do every time we have a live stream, every single article that we write in our magazine, whenever we do the $1 Million Trade Show. All of it is geared for you to get there. And because we know that you want to leave a legacy, and we know you want to do it in style. So that's what we're all about. And you may have missed it. Last week we had, anyway, last week, a couple weeks ago, we had Dennis Block. Last week, I can't even remember right now. But go back and look. If you go to YouTube and search AOA USA, you can see all the videos that we have. There's a ton of them. Next week, we do have one on ADA compliance, and you'll learn how to be compliant, and that will keep you out of big trouble. So that's one that's going to help you save money. And then it is a doubleheader that day. Then the week after that, we do have Dennis Block coming again to give a legislative update for Southern California. If you're in Northern California, Richard Beckman, he will be speaking on the following week. And so we have you covered. And so go ahead, you can subscribe to YouTube. And also, you should, it's free. You can subscribe to the AOA newsletter, and we send that out. It's free. It's an email, and we'll just kind of keep you up to date. This week, we sent out a reminder for people to send out a notice that needs to be sent out by the end of the month. And so those are just the kinds of things that we'll do. And, we want to rally people around the different causes that we need to all fight for, and we need to fight. We are fighting for your property rights, and so we want you to be involved with that. It's all grassroots. So that's who we are. And to get to today, man, we have the number one company for the last 10 years in DSTs, and they did it $4 billion. $4 billion over the last 13 years, which is astounding. And it's Inland Securities Corporation. They've been in our $1 Million Trade Show. They've spoken before, and it's really a pleasure to have them sponsor this event and to have their speaker come to share with you today. He's the Senior Vice President at Inland Securities. He's been in the business with them for the last 14 years, and he's a sales and new broker relationship. That's kind of what he does, and very good at it. It's my pleasure to introduce to you today, Charles Jensen.
My name is Charles Jensen, Senior Vice President with Inland Securities Corporation. Appreciate that introduction there. And I'm pulling my information up so you can see here. It's a pleasure to be here today talking to you in Southern California. I know our title today of our presentation is Escape from California. And today I'm going to go over the basics of 1031 exchanges for a few minutes. And also we're going to talk about the Delaware Statutory Trust, which may be a potential solution for you to get out of issues like Prop 19 in California, getting higher rents out of state, higher income, getting higher quality properties, and diversification. So stick with me here today, and we're going to go over all these different basic concepts. Just want to start off by introducing our presentation. It's called Utilizing DSTs in a 1031 Exchange. Now, a Delaware Statutory Trust is a security, so there are risk factors. So make sure you read your prospectus, and we know that past performance is not indicative of future results. Who is Inland Real Estate? If you're in California and you hear the word inland, you might think that we're in the Inland Empire, somewhere in the desert, right? But that's not the case. We're actually started by 4 Chicago teachers back in the 60s. These 4 teachers met in teaching school, and they're making about $6,000 a year, and they decided to band together, teach at the same school, use the faculty lounge phone to call realtors and find their very first transaction. Their very first deal was a piece of land that they built a 4-unit apartment building on. They ended up selling it, doubling their initial investment, and you can imagine what happened. All the teachers around them said, hey, can we invest with you on your next transaction? So they did more and more deals. and more people came in to invest with them. By 1967, they stopped teaching school. In 1968, they incorporated into Inland Real Estate Group of Companies. And through the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, until today, they bought retail, office, industrial, apartments, medical, storage. By 1989, we became the largest landlord of Walmart nationwide. Today, we're the 8th largest commercial property owner in the US, and all 4 of those former teachers are still there. From left to right, in the blue tie is Robert Baum, our chief legal counsel. The red tie is Robert Parks, the former head of sales. The bow tie is Joe Cosenza, the head of acquisitions. And the salmon tie is Dan Goodwin, the chairman and CEO of the Inland Real Estate Group of Companies. As mentioned, we are the nation's leader in the Delaware Statutory Trust over the last decade. We completed over 120 dispositions, start to finish transactions under Inland Private Capital, over $5.5 billion in equity offered, making us the nation's leader. This last year, we were 22% in market share, and we continue to hold our leadership in this role. As I mentioned, we've done every asset class of commercial real estate in all but 5 states in the United States of America. So we have a lot of experience in all directions. Now, I know this is pretty elementary for some of you, but I wanted to go over just the basics of 1031 exchanges for maybe 1 or 2 minutes so you understand the exchange process before we go into the Delaware Statutory Trust. This slide right here shows you an example of selling a property that's $1 million and your adjusted basis is 0. So your capital gain is $1 million on the sale of the property. You're going to run into 4 major taxes when you do your 1031 exchange. The first tax you run into is the one that a lot of people forget until they talk to their accountant. It's depreciation recapture. And what that is the IRS can claw back up to 25% of all the depreciation benefits they gave you along the way upon the sale. In this case, there was $100,000 on the million of depreciation. IRS got back $25,000. The next tax and the largest tax is the federal tax on gain at 20%. On $1 million, that's $200,000. The next tax is state taxes. Now, this is kind of funny. It says 5.1%. That's actually the average of all 50 states averaged together for their state taxes. We know in California, we go up to 13.3. So forget $51,000, you're looking close to $133,000. Medicare tax, the Obamacare Medicare 3.8%, you're going to get taxed on that as well. So on a national average, in any state in the nation, on $1 million, you'll be left with $686,000. In California, you'll be left with $600,000. So you could be hit with a 40% capital gain. The whole idea of a 1031 exchange is to swap until you drop, exchange until you die. And you see on the right-hand column, through a 1031 exchange, you defer all these taxes. These have been going on since 1921. The funds have to end up in a qualified intermediary. A third-party qualified intermediary can't be your realtor, can't be your financial advisor, can't be your buddy down the street. Has to be a third-party intermediary. If the funds don't end up there, you'll be taxed on the gain. So there's a timeline. When you sell your property, you close escrow. On day 1 of close of escrow, you've got 45 days in which to identify your replacement property. You can go up to 3 properties or use what's called the 200% rule. You have 180 days to get it closed. Now, when I'm talking to realtors lately in Southern California, I've been hearing that there's multiple offers on properties, 10, 20, 30 offers sometimes on properties. We're definitely in a seller's market. Today in our presentation, you'll learn about the Delaware Statutory Trust, the fact that we've already closed on the real estate. We can help ensure that 45-day period is met. And by the way, the 45-day period is the hardest thing to hit out of all of these components here. Now, when you exchange, a property has to be considered like kind. They call it a like kind 1031 exchange. A 1031 like kind does not mean you're selling apartments and going to apartments or selling retail and going to retail. Like kind means you're selling a property held for investment or business use, and you're exchanging into a property held for investment or business use. So for example, you could sell your multifamily building, your apartment building, which a lot of you own here, and you could exchange that into a healthcare property. You could sell healthcare property, exchange it into self-storage. You get the idea. You can exchange it to air rights above a building, water rights and mineral rights below a building. And I want to kind of give you an idea of these like-kind investments. So again, it doesn't mean apartments to apartments. You can go between any asset class of commercial real estate. Now, in 2004, the IRS created a revenue procedure, 2004-86 of the code. And the IRS created a trust that's considered like kind. It's exchangeable. It's one of the few investments of its kind. Now, exchanging into a Delaware statutory trust is very simple. Step number one, sell your property via your realtor. Step number two, funds go to a third-party qualified intermediary. Step number three, that qualified intermediary wires those funds into your Delaware statutory trust. So it's no different from doing any other type of exchange. This is just another option that you have on the table. So today, since we're limited on time, I'm going to go over the 6 major bullet points of a Delaware statutory trust. If some of these bullet points resonate with you, this might be a good vehicle for you. This is not for everyone, but this has certain advantages that other types of real estate do not have. And the first advantage I want to go over with you in green is access to institutional quality properties. And let me explain that. When the IRS created the Delaware Statutory Trust that allows for up to 500 investors to exchange together, we can now band our money together to buy bigger and better properties. Maybe you're selling that property in Los Angeles and you're looking for $1 million and you're looking for that $1 million property in Los Angeles, if that exists anymore, right? But imagine you can take that $1 million property and exchange it into an institutional grade property. So for example, DSTs kind of look like this. ESPN's corporate headquarters in Bristol, Connecticut is an inland Delaware statutory trust. It could be a FedEx facility, could be an Amazon facility, could be apartment buildings, healthcare, self-storage. The point being is, in a DST, you can access higher quality institutional grade real estate. Only the likes of the Rothschilds, the Vanderbilts, the old ultra wealthy people in America have access to. Now you have access to those same high quality properties. Higher quality properties brings more safety. Next bullet point in green is no management responsibilities. No management responsibilities. So imagine 500 people being in a Delaware statutory trust. One of the problems is you can't give everyone management responsibility, right? It's like having 500 cooks in the kitchen. You're going to burn that meal every time. So in a DST, Inland, or the sponsor of the DST, is the trustee of the trust. We do all the property and management. And here's the nice thing about it. In one side of the coin, you lose a little bit of control because you can't decide what to paint the apartment building or what you're doing with the tenants. But on the flip side of that, you get out of the terrible T's, the tenants, the toilets, the trash, the turmoil, termites, teenagers, taxes, TROs, whatever they might be, the terrible T's, you're getting out of them. In a DST, this is a passive vehicle. You're just along for the ride. You collect the income, it's managed by Inland, and you enjoy the terrific T's. Time with kids, travel, tennis, whatever you like to do, you're doing, you're not burdened by the property management. That water heater breaks in the middle of the night, we handle it. Tenant's not paying rent, we handle it. We take care of everything. So full disclosure, I have 3 different DSTs at Inland. Every first of the month, I receive a direct deposit, comes into my checking account on each of the three DSTs. Every quarter, I receive an update that comes in the mail and email. It shows me the property updates and all the financials of what's happened with my property over the last quarter. At the end of the year, I receive a simple informational 1099. Now, well, the way this works is we show your percentage of ownership. In the top right-hand corner, this hypothetical investor owns 2.7% of the Delaware Statutory Trust and the properties within it. And you'll see in the first rectangular box, this individual received $77,808 in distributions over the last 12 months. Minus, in the second rectangular box, red box, the mortgage interest reporting. So that's your depreciation. So we're going to give you all of your income, all of your depreciation, and all you have to do is plug these back into Schedule E. Schedule E is where you put your rental income anyways when you get your income on your apartment buildings. So it's the same way you're reporting now. You get all the appreciation potential, depreciation benefits, and we report it to you on these simple forms. So for me, with my 3 different DSTs, my accountant puts it under Schedule E, under property A, B, and C. I get all the income depreciation plugged in. Only takes a few minutes per property typically. Next bullet point, diversification. I'm sure we've all heard the old adage, don't put all your eggs into one basket. The same is true in real estate. Now, being in a seller's market right now, it's hard to buy back in, right? So a lot of people are selling one property, and they're trying to buy into one property. But what's interesting with the diversification is in a DST, you can get much more diversification in these. And let me explain why. Back to this slide. It could be that ESPN headquarters in Bristol, Connecticut. DST could be that one Amazon facility. But a lot of times there are multiple properties inside of one Delaware statutory trust. We create a portfolio. So for example, looking at the top of the screen, multifamily. A DST might hypothetically be something like 5 apartment buildings in Florida in one Delaware statutory trust portfolio. It could be 5 hospitals in Arizona inside of one DST portfolio. It could be 30 storage facilities in Texas in one DST portfolio. So imagine you're selling that one property in Los Angeles, California. Now you can take that $1 million and put it into 3 DSTs if you wanted to, or more. So imagine that one property in California. Now you're in, 5 apartment buildings in Florida, 5 hospitals in Arizona, and 30 storage facilities. You went from one property, one city, and one state to into 40 properties in 3 states and 3 asset classes. Are you diversified? Diversification brings safety, allows us to anticipate things that we don't anticipate. The next earthquake, the next disaster, the next pandemic, God forbid. Being in a DST helps you to diversify so no one property is going to take you down. The next bullet point, number 4, is limited personal liability. And let me explain it this way. As we know in exchange law, if you sold $1 million property, you need to buy back into $1 million in real estate, if that's the net sales proceeds, equal or greater. You sold $1 million, you have to buy back into $1 million, equal or greater. You could put in more debt, you could put in more equity, but anything less is taxable or boot, as we all know. So you can sell a $1 million property and go into $800,000 property, but on the $200,000 you did not exchange, that's taxable or boot. So think about this logically. If you have $1 million property and we have a loan for $500,000, when you sell that property, the $500,000 is paid via escrow back to the bank. The proceeds go to the qualified intermediary of $500,000, which gets wired into your DST at $500,000. But remember, we sold for $1 million. You have to get back up to that $1 million mark to defer your taxes. So what most people do is A, get a loan for $500,000 to get back to the $1 million level, or B, come out of pocket the difference to get back to the $1 million. 99% of people elect to get the loan. It's a lot easier, especially people are not that liquid with their cash typically. And so here's what I'm getting at. If there's 500 people, up to 500 people in a Delaware statutory trust, how hard would it be for us to get financing for 500 people? How long would it take? How difficult would it be? How much would that cost us? I think the IRS realized this in 2004 when they created the revenue procedure 2004-86. So what they do is they allow the sponsor of the DST company to put one loan on the property. If we put one loan on the property, the debt is ours, not yours. It's non-recourse. What am I saying here? In a DST, you do not have to go to a bank and get a loan. You don't have to get a credit check. You don't have to go through that whole process of getting financing. Why? Because you can absorb our financing in our DSTs. Let me give you an example. Hypothetical investor relinquishes their property. They sell their property for $1.1 million. They were carrying $600,000 in equity with $500,000 in debt. What they're doing is they're going to replace into an inland DST that is at 48.5% loan to value. So you'll see here that this works because they're going equal or greater. They're going from 45 to 48.5. They're taking on another $65,719 in debt. It doesn't give them more shares per se, but they get more depreciation because of the added debt added to the portfolio. So this works. Now, as a smart company, some of our DSTs have 0 debt. Some have 40, 50, 60, even 80% loan to value. So you can choose. If you don't have debt, you don't want debt or don't need debt, you can go into our 0 debt, all cash DST offering. Maybe you have 50% financing, go into our 50. But say you're coming out at 25% loan to value on the sale of your property. You can blend it. Property number 1, DST, put half your money into a 0 debt medical deal. Property number 2, DST, half your money into a 50% apartment deal. Now you're averaging out at 25% loan to value. You can mix and match DSTs from one to another to get to the exact loan to value that you need to complete your 1031 exchange. You can even lever up. You have no debt. You've owned your apartment building for 30 years, fully depreciated. Why not put that into a 50% loan to value DST, get more debt, more depreciation to offset more of your ordinary income? This works. My next slide in green here is estate planning. I'm willing to bet many of you on the call today that own apartments or apartment owners, a lot of you have a revocable living trust. And if you don't, you should probably talk to your financial advisor. And a lot of people get revocable living trust to avoid probate upon death. Also, it gives a nice way of giving assets to your heirs, right? You can put beneficiaries in your revocable living trust. Well, just so you know, you can put your Delaware statutory trust inside of your revocable living trust. So think about two scenarios. One scenario, you own your apartment building. You continue to manage it through your lifetime, okay? You manage it through retirement. Upon death, your kids get a step up in basis to fair market value under current tax law, okay? But here's the problem. You dealt with the tenants, the toilets, and trash, or the management company during your lifetime. Now, upon death, you have two kids, Bobby and Sally. Are they going to agree upon when to sell that apartment building? Do they know how to manage it? Are they going to fight? I can tell you a lot of families I know that the kids no longer speak to each other because of disagreements on the real estate passed to them. Scenario number two, same person owns an apartment building, husband and wife. They have their two kids. They sell that property sometime in their life. They go into an inland Delaware statutory trust. Maybe it's an apartment deal. They get out of the tenants, toilets, and trash. They get out of the hassle. They're able to retire from their real estate. And upon death, the kids get the same step up in basis to fair market value. Now, the kids get the income split according to the revocable living trust. And upon the sale of the DST, each kid gets their portion of what's left and the profits. So this is a neat thing that you can do to leave your kids without the hassle and fighting in a property. The last bullet point is this, and I think this is very logical. Majority of people out there are selling one property and they're exchanging and they're looking at one property to identify, okay? Now we know if that property you're trying to identify falls out of escrow after day 45, you have a taxable event. So would it make sense to work on that property, identification number one, the property you're working on, property number 2 and 3 are DSTs, okay? A Delaware statutory trust. So again, use us as backups as property number 2 and 3, just in case you fall out of escrow. I've seen it save people many times. And again, a DST is considered like kind. So it's just another option that you have that you can exchange into that's there for you. So again, you could have $1 million property. You could put $500,000 into a DST, $500,000 into a local property. And by the way, the minimum investment on a Delaware statutory trust is $100,000. I've seen the average trade size in California is about $1 million, but I've seen $10 million DSTs. I've seen $100 million DSTs. So we can accommodate everyone. Or maybe you're just trying to lever up where you can't get the financing you need. This is a great way to lever up. So in closing, when you think about a Delaware statutory trust, those 6 bullet points, you're looking for access to high quality, institutional grade properties. You want to go up in quality. You want to get out of the management, those tenants, toilets, and trash. You want diversification into multiple properties in multiple states and multiple asset classes. You want to limit your liability. You don't have to take out financing. That's a great thing, right? You can use the DST. Use it in your estate plan with your revocable living trust. Use it as an insurance policy. All of these things work for you. And in closing, I know we call this presentation Escape from California, and let me tell you why. It's difficult to find a Delaware statutory trust in the market today that's in California. Why? The cap rates, right? It's a bit expensive in California, to say the least. So a lot of our DSTs and DSTs in the DST, with the DST companies are in other states like Arizona, Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Colorado, other states outside of California. Why? You get more income. The typical DST in the market today, you'll see give you between 4 to 5% net of all fee cash on cash income out in the market today. What I'm getting at is the average income I've seen in Southern California has been about 2 to 3. So you can get more income out of California. You can get out of the issues of Prop 19. You can get out of the issues of Assembly Bill 1482 and rent controls. And you can get out of oppressive rules of being a landlord in California. So this is your true escape from California to get out of the management, to get into higher income, and get into better properties. Again, my name is Charles Jensen, Senior VP for Inland Securities Corporation. My information's here, cell phone 602-403-5535. I live in Santa Monica, California. My email address is cjensen, Jensen, at inland-securities.com. Love to hear from you if you want to learn more about the Delaware Statutory Trust. It's been a pleasure being here today, and I turn it back over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Charles, for the presentation. Now, everyone, is the time for you to type in your questions. If you're on the AOA website, the AOAUSA.com website, there's the blue help button at the bottom right side of the page. You can click on that and type in your question, and they'll get that question to me. And then again on YouTube and Facebook, go ahead and type your questions in. And as you're typing your questions in, just want to remind you that there's the AOA brokerage, been around since before AOA even started. And we have a lot of guys there that have 25 plus years of experience, and they're ready to help you. They'll give you a free property valuation, so you can do that. And the other thing that I wanted to bring up to you today is that we are in the middle of a war, and we need to fight with our pencil and paper, and we need to tell the governor, you need to tell your local mayor and city council members how you feel about the eviction moratorium and why that it should end at the end of the month, in the time where it says it's supposed to end, instead of continuing on past September. And so we believe that the tenant advocate groups really are pushing to go all the way till the end of December. You hear people talking about how, well, that the funds haven't been dispersed. And so that's going to be a reason why that they propose extending it out further. But we all know that that's just a big excuse, just to extend it out further and to keep tenants off of the hook. But really, when you think about it, tenants are just going to owe that much more money. It's not good for them, and it's obviously not good for us. So what I want you to do is to join us. If all of us get together and send out this picture along with something that you write, and you send it to the governor, you send it to your mayor, you send it to your city council members, they will get a picture. They will get the idea, because a picture is worth 1,000 words, plus you're going to put your own words on it. And if they get enough of those, it will make a difference. And I believe that this is a critical time for us to make that difference. Our voices need to be heard. So we are rallying you right now, asking you to get involved with that. And if you're saying, well, Jeff, I already have, all my tenants are paying. Well, think about everybody else in the industry. Let's be in this together as a community. And really, it's fighting for our property rights. And this is kind of a bedrock part of what makes America as prosperous as it is, and as runs as well as it is, and creates the opportunity that it has for the greatest number of people. And so we just want you to get involved with that. And here, now we're going to go ahead and go to the Q&A time. All right, everyone, here we are. We have a bunch of questions, so we'll go ahead and start with these. Su-Chen Lee, thank you for your question. Is there a limitation to buy and sell at any time?
Yes, there is. When you're into a Delaware statutory trust, and I mentioned we've done 120 deals over the years. We know the past performance is not indicative of future results, but if we were taking an average on DSTs, the average time frame for a holder of a DST is 5 to 7 years. So if you go into a DST, there is illiquidity, right? Because you're into real estate, you're into a group investment, and you need to wait for the DST to be sold. So if you bought into a DST at $1 million, and hypothetically say we sold it 5 years later, and say there's 20% appreciation just for fun's sake, what happens is we send you a letter out with a 30, 60, 90-day close of escrow notice saying, hey, we sold it. We got this profit coming, hopefully, and your money goes directly back to a qualified intermediary. At that point, your $1 million turned to 1.2. It's at the QI, and you can instruct them to wire the funds back to you, wire back into real estate of your choosing, locally, or cash it out, or all of the above. So if you go into it with a 5 to 7 year mindset.
Great. Now you said there that you did 120 deals. Now that doesn't mean just 120 clients. That's how many each of those deals I know represents a different number of clients, but how many clients would be in an average deal, I guess?
Well, you have up to 500 investors in an average deal. So you're talking about thousands and thousands of investors that have worked with us. And we have a high retention rate. When we sell a DST, we have a high retention of people that go into the next deal. In fact, our goal is to keep having you roll as much as you want. We want to give you a good experience. So we'd love to keep working with you over the years.
Great. Next question here is from Alan. Thank you for your question. Can you choose which specific type of property you can invest in?
Absolutely. And keep this in mind. We've already closed on DSTs in advance, right? So we went out a couple months ago, bought the property, did due diligence. If we got a loan from a third-party bank, they do due diligence, and it goes through the whole process. So what I'm getting at is when you go to look at the DST options that are out there, what you're going to find is a menu. You might find some storage. You might find an Amazon. You might find an apartment building. There are different asset classes of real estate that are out there. So you get to choose what DST you want. But each DST that comes out has a finite life. It could be a $100 million offering. So when $100 million is filled up by people's investments, that DST closes and a new one opens. What I'm getting at is we keep a constant menu at Inland. And we're not the only player in the DST world. We're just the largest. And so you have a lot of options, a lot of a big menu to choose from of pre-made, ready-to-go stuff. And that's why we're not afraid of the 45-day rule, is we've already bought the property in advance. We have surety of close.
Great. Okay. And here's Galit Tashman on YouTube. What are the fees or range of fees one can expect as an investor in your DSTs?
So I'm going to speak as an industry, not just Inland, but I'll speak as an industry in general. When you think about fees, I like to think about it this way. If you go to buy and sell an apartment building, right? You're going to pay a realtor on the sell side. You're going to pay the buyer and seller maybe 2 or 3% on each side, right? So it'd be 5 or 6%. You're going to have financing fees. You're going to have different fees are included there. So you go to buy and sell, maybe you're looking on a normal level on your own, 5, 6, 7% in fees, right? A typical DST, you're looking a little bit higher. It's closer to 9%, up to 12% in some DSTs. Okay, we're closer to the 9 on the Inland side. But the thing is you're getting multiple properties in multiple states, in multiple asset classes. We're doing high levels of due diligence. So you're paying for that process. However, let's say you put $1 million into a Delaware statutory trust. Okay, your first statement shows $1 million. Your second statement shows $1 million. It doesn't change. So if we're going to pay you, hypothetically, say 5% cash on cash net of all fees on $1 million, that's $50,000 a year, or a check every month for $41.66 every month of the year. What I'm getting at is we don't deduct the fees and then pay you your income after the fees. It's all kind of inclusive of that. So every penny of every dollar that you put into the DST, you get your income on. Now, when the DST is sold is when you really feel and realize the upfront load. They'll figure that out in the back of the deal. What I'm getting at is imagine have all your money working for you, compounding and getting income on dollar one. So that's the nice thing about the DST and how they work. That's the simple answer to fees.
Great. And so you would say there's not really a difference between your company or other companies as far as the fees. It's pretty much there's an industry standard.
Well, I say it's a big difference. I would say that if you were to look at Inland's fees, we're one of the lowest, if not the lowest, in the whole business of DST companies. But this is an important thing because I say the average between 9 and 12, or Inland's closer to 9. But if you look at a lot of sponsors out there, their fees can be a lot higher. So there are big differences. In fact, a friend of mine said this once, and it kind of stuck with me. What are the 3 most important rules of real estate? When you go to buy is location, location, location. I'm going to tell you right now, when you go to do a DST, it's sponsor, sponsor, sponsor. Do not doubt that it's important. In 53 years, we've never had a capital call. We've never had a bankruptcy. Not that we couldn't have, but Inland has deep pockets. If you're working with fly-by-night companies that are out there that are DST sponsors, 2 guys in a pickup truck, no offense, you can run into issues where they cannot stand up and pay a fee. So choose your sponsor very wisely. And there are big differences between sponsors and the fees as well. I'm just kind of being nice to kind of give a range, but we're on the lower end of that range and they can go higher too.
Okay, great. All right, Rosie O'Grady on YouTube. Can you choose not to have properties in California?
Well, that's not very hard because we don't buy anything in California, right? And again, because you're running to regulations, you're running to issues of, you talked about earlier about landlord rights, right? In Texas, you're in Florida, other states in the nation, it's a little bit easier to be a landlord, or a lot easier to be a landlord. So we buy nothing in California because of the income and because of the regulations. So when you go into a DST, all the choices are outside of California. In fact, I don't know any companies these days in the DST realm. There might be one that buys in California. It's not a very typical thing. Most properties are out of state.
Great. On YouTube, John, in our real estate holdings, we have required insurance costs. Is this safeguard handled in a DST as far as projected income?
Absolutely. So when we underwrite a deal, we do a rigorous procedure for underwriting. And think about this too. Let's look through the process really fast of this. When we create a Delaware statutory trust, we have to like it enough to buy it ourselves, right? We go out and buy it in advance, in cash, add debt to it. When we add debt to it, the bank has to like it. We file it with the Securities Exchange Commission. They don't approve or deny anything. Okay, you just go on and file. You want to dot your I's and cross your T's. But this is distributed through the financial world. And in fact, when you contact me, I can get you to different individuals that can help you with this. This is through the financial world. So what happens is the DST goes to independent financial firms that are out there. They can't just sign these deals up. They have to do their own due diligence through a third party. They go out and hire these third parties that look at the property, they fly out and do all the numbers, and then they decide to approve it. So what I'm getting at is what we look at, what the bank looks at, what those third party due diligence companies look at that sign our deals. Are we properly insured? Do our numbers include everything in there? So if we're in Florida, rest assured we have hurricane insurance. We're in a flood zone, we're going to have flooding insurance. All these different areas we're in, we need to carry those insurance for the bank and to even get the deal signed. And it just makes sense. So those are inclusive of the numbers. If we quote you a 4 or 5% cash on cash net of all fee income, it's inclusive of everything.
Great, thank you. All right, Paul on YouTube. Hi, what is the average yearly rate of return? I think you mentioned it already, but I'll let you
Yeah, so there's two different things. You have your income and then ultimately your outcome, right? The total return is the income plus the growth. You're not losing growth in a DST, right? You can sell for a profit. You can sell for a loss too, right? But you're selling when you're getting your income along the way. The average out there right now in DST world is right around 4 to 5% cash on cash income. That's net of all fees. So that's not a gross, that's the net, cash on cash. I think I mentioned before too that in California, I've seen thousands of investors I've met with, done over $4 billion in transaction volume. And most investors are getting lucky to get 2 to 3% cash on cash, net of all fee income. So this is one of those things where you sit back, we handle everything, and you get a higher income being out of state, typically.
Great. Here's Brendan on YouTube. Can DSTs be used to invest in opportunity zones to shelter capital gains from non-1031 exchange scenario? Great question. Thank you for that one, Brendan.
That's a great question. In 2017, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was released. I and a lot of different people were on Capitol Hill, trying to save the 1031 exchange the last time around. And if you notice what happened was in 2017, Congress got rid of personal property for 1031 exchanges. I was actually in one of those meetings when that happened and when they were discussing this. And the reason is in real property, in investment property, you have land and you have a building, right? And you can't depreciate land. So they said, you know what? This is what they were thinking. All those rich people that own artwork and aircraft and all that, they'll be fine, and they'll give them other benefits like accelerated, immediate expensing and other things they can give them. But what they decided to do was to keep 1031 exchange for investment real estate and put everything else that's personal property, you can use an opportunity zone fund. So opportunity zones, as we know, came out of the Senate. Cory Booker of New Jersey and Tim Scott of North Carolina. They were Democrats and Republicans got together to create this. But here's what I'm going to say right now. I believe if you're selling real estate, it's an investment property, the 1031 exchange has way more bells and whistles. Now, we also have opportunity zones. So I work on both sides. So I'm not trying to pick one or another. But if it's real estate, look at the op zone. But if it's personal property, it's the house you're living in. Hey, use Section 121 to your 250 or 500,000 if you're married. But the rest of that money can go to an op zone. You sold cryptocurrency. put it into opportunity zone. You sold a stock, bond, mutual fund. Anything not eligible for a 1031 exchange can go into opportunity zone. I can't speak about in this call, but we have opportunity zone funds that are available that you can do this with. The main thing is you have to hold your money for 10 years, right? You're gonna defer, reduce, and you're gonna eliminate in an op zone. So all you got to do is take the gain, put it into opportunity zone fund, right? And then 2026, 2027, the taxes, you get a 10% step up in basis. At the end, the growth of that investment will be tax-free. That's one of the reasons the 1031 is nice, is the whole thing goes in and you can just swap until you drop, exchange it till you die, defer until you die, and then upon death get the step up. That's why investment real estate is better for 1031. Everything else, opportunity zones, and we have them as well.
All right, thank you. And on YouTube, Kurt, can I trade a 3-unit with 1 unit that is owner occupied? Can I trade this into a residential property and have 1 unit owner occupied?
Say that one more time. I'll make sure I heard that right.
Yeah, what we have here, it says, can I trade a 3-unit with 1 unit that is owner occupied? Can I trade this into a residential property and have 1 unit owner occupied? Maybe he meant instead of residential, maybe he meant.
Let me answer it this way, and maybe, and please respond back if I don't give the full answer that you're looking for. And I think this is what they're looking for. Let's say you live in a 4-unit apartment building that you own. The unit you live in, per the square footage, you cannot exchange, right? The unit you live in, you can do section 121. So this is a 121, 1031 exchange combination. So the unit you live in, per square footage, you do section 121. So the 75% of the building, the other 3 units, you can do in a 1031 exchange into a DST. And again, you can go into anything held for investment or business use. So it doesn't matter what it is. So let's say you're living in that unit, you buy into a new building, you can go ahead and move into a unit and then do the same thing again. I guess that'd be the easiest answer.
Okay, and Kurt, if we didn't answer your question, you can always write another one. All right, YouTube, Zipporah, can the DST avoid the California clawback provision?
No one can avoid the clawback, but can I explain a little further? In California, they have this clawback provision that says, let's say you bought a house in LA years ago for $100,000, and today you sold it for $1 million, and now you went into a DST in Florida. Okay, what happens is from that point on, is your accountant has to fill out this form. It's a 1-pager, or it's a checkbox on their software, and it says, "Oh, hey, client sold, didn't realize the gain. They're in a 1031 exchange." And every year you have to check that box to say, I have not realized my gain. I have not realized my gain. So what they're looking for the Franchise Tax Board is for that year where you realize the gain and you sell the property for $2 million in Florida, but California wants their $900,000 gain while you're in the state. They're going to claw it back. So what I'm getting at is you're fine as long as you swap until you drop. But if you ever go to sell the property, California just wants their portion.
Great. Tony, great question here. How does Inland make money and how much?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So we typically make money on the front end of the deal on a small acquisitions fee, around 1 or 2%, depending on the deal. Here's how we really make our money is we're a property management company, right? So we take a couple of percentage points, 2 or 3% in management off the gross rents every year. Here's what we do. Say we're giving you 5% cash on cash net of all fees. What's happening is we're actually earning more than 5. We have a sliver above the 5 going to pay us the management fee. That way we're not getting checks from up to 500 people per DST, right? You don't have to write a check. But the other sliver is going into a reserve account. That reserve account builds over time. And when we sell the DST, that money is distributed pro rata. So what I'm getting at is that we make our money off the management fee of the properties. So if we take a property, a DST, and we sell it after 5, 6, 7 years, and for a profit, majority of people roll back in. Now we're making more management fees. We keep rolling and rolling and rolling. So we want to keep a satisfied customer to keep working with us. Now there can be a disposition fee on the back of the deal. Inland typically doesn't take it. We have the right to, but that's usually where the fees are at. So management fee is the biggest fee that we take. But think about it. In management fees in California, what, 5, 6% that you're looking at? So this is a lot less, and you get a big company behind you supporting you.
Great. All right. Thank you, Tony. Gary, what is the leverage loan price ratio of DST properties?
So I would say the average leverage of all companies is right around 50% loan to value. At Inland, we're a bit unique because we keep zero all cash properties on hand. We try to. We keep 40s, 50s. 50s are average. We keep 55s, sometimes even up to 57. But we have DST that goes up to 80% loan to value. So we go 0 to 80. So you can pick and choose what you want. Say, for example, you're buying a property and the bank tells you that you can't get enough, you can't get enough loan, right? You could put a portion into our 80% loan to value and blend it with the loan you're getting to make your debt right. So there's a lot of creative ways to do this. But again, the average is 50, but we have 0 to 80.
Great. All right. Gary, again, when the DST is sold, does the investor participate in the gain in values?
Absolutely. When the property sells, your portion goes back to the qualified intermediary, your principal and the gain in this case, and that goes back to you to reinvest into a DST or back into real property on your own or to cash out. So it's up to you at that point.
Great. And Zipporah, here's the last question. It looks like this looks like the last question. So if you were hesitating, wanting to ask a question, now's your time to put it in. And if it's in there by the time we finish, then we'll go ahead and ask it. Here we go. Zipporah, during an economy where there is higher inflation, will the income from the DST keep up with inflation and the income increase in relation to inflation? That's a great question. And Jeff, I hope you don't mind, I put my contact information up again at the end here, so everyone has it. Great. So this is a really interesting question. Over the last so many years, the trend has been for people to sell their apartment buildings and go into net lease property, right? Triple net leases, net lease property. What is the downside of net lease property? Is that you have smaller rent increases typically, right? If you look at what Inland is doing and a lot of the DST market's doing, they're buying apartment buildings. Apartments, you can reset rents every year, right? So if inflation is going up higher and higher, right? You can reset your rents higher and higher every year. And if you're the landlord, it's not one for one, but as we increase, the distribution should start to increase over time as well. Think about storage facilities. You got 3-month leases, you got 12-month leases. The average person in America goes in thinking they're going to rent a storage unit for maybe 3 to 6 months. They end up renting it for 18 months. What I'm getting at is every time these leases renew, we can raise rents, or we have DSTs tied to consumer price index. So as inflation happens, but it's the asset classes we're buying are the most important thing, that they're a natural hedge against inflation. Great. All right, Jay, you got it in, man. Good job. If an investor in a DST wants to re-exchange for something else before the DST is sold, is there a secondary market for individual ownership interests in the DST? That's a good question. You want to get out early. Can you? Yeah. So the easy answer is no. But if you were to read our private placement memorandum, 200 to 300 pages, there's nothing there that would say that a secondary market exists. Why? Because we cannot guarantee a secondary market will exist. Imagine if if you're trying to sell out at the beginning of the pandemic, where everyone's kind of sitting back for a minute, or you're trying to sell out in 2008, 2009, right? There might be a very limited market. So the easy answer is you really need to stay in. There's been emergency situations where we've sent a letter out to their other investors in the DST saying, do we want to buy someone out? But think about this, a lot of times it's like auctioning something, they might give you a discount, right? They might say, I'm not going to give you this. People might fish around trying to get your interest. You might be able to get a par or premium, but that's not guaranteed. So if you go into a DST, you really want to hang on to it for the long-term horizon. But to answer this way too, at the thousands and thousands and thousands of investors that exchanged, probably only right around 10 to 15 used that option last year. So this isn't a typical thing that people do to get out. If you're going to a DST, you really want to have a longer time horizon, 5 to 7 years in your mindset. It could be a year and a half, could be 3 or 4 years, could be 10 years, right? But the average has been 6 over the years. Great. DJ, he asked this question that I almost asked for him because it's a good question. With California clawback, what happens if you die and it is passed on to your children?
Full disclosure, I'm not an accountant, right? But that's something you really should talk to your accountant about. It's a really good question, but it's something I probably should not get into. My company would not want me to get into on this kind of call. But under California law, right, that one spouse dies, the other one gets a step up, right, at that point. So you think, right, and you should check with your accountant, but you think that those taxes would go away. But you should really check with your financial advisor and or your accountant on that.
Great. All right. Let's see, man, they just keep coming. When my DST sells, can I buy into real estate building again?
Yes, absolutely. Because the money always defaults back to the qualified intermediary. I would assume because we don't want to force a taxable event on people and we don't know people's intentions. So as a policy, we always roll all the funds back to a qualified intermediary. And at that point, it's like that movie Groundhog Day, that the whole process starts over. You got 45 to identify, 180 to close. So yes, you can sell out of your DST. Every time it sells, all options are on the table. You can roll into another property of your choosing. You can wire it back into your checking account, pay taxes, or you can put it into a DST or combination of all the above.
So that's kind of cool. If let's say you have 50 properties and you just had a few kids, then you could roll it into one of those. And then after they graduate from high school, you can take them back and start managing again if you wanted, right?
There's so much you can do. I've got people that intend to die at the DST and say they have $3 million and they have 3 kids. Sometimes they choose 3 different DSTs in their trust. And one can go to one kid, one goes to another goes to another. So there's so many creative ways through your financial advisor that in your accountant, you can figure out to use the DST to your advantage.
Great. All right, John, he asked a question before. If you are in a fund that is total real estate, it's with a broker, when that fund sells the property, can this be 1031 exchange? So that's pretty much same question thing.
Yeah. So yeah, the answer is yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, great. We're about out of time here, and everyone, thank you so much for the questions. That makes it so much more engaging when you ask questions like that. So thank you. And just thank you for being amazing AOA members. And we have already seen some response from one mayor at least that called in, and that hardly ever happens, from that protest. So go to the AOAUSA.com/protest. You can download it if you don't have the magazine. And go ahead, fill that out, send it to the governor, your mayor, and your local council members. And it's going to help you. It's going to help everyone, including tenants, because they don't need to keep stacking up a debt either. That's not good for anyone. And anyway, just thank you again. Next week we have another live stream, and then we have ADA compliance 2 weeks after that on the August 5th. No, August 5th, it's ADA compliance. Yeah, there's 2 of them. So you'll want to listen to that one. Dennis Block on a legislative update the week after that, and then another legislative update for Northern California the week after that. So we're going to continue to bring this kind of content. Subscribe if you'd like to, and because if you like this kind of content, and give it a like if you like what Charles had to share, and we will see you next time.